company for a lot of reasons, which you'll learn about. I'm not going to go into much detail other than to tell you that the company has been funded so far by the top people in the field, and they are people that lecture all over the world. And you'll learn a lot more about that. With me today is Andy Greenberg. He's a CEO. Among the many accomplishments he has in his career, he has the distinction to have sold the first vertebrae replacement company to Johnson & Johnson, and he was the second largest shareholder, and that price tag was $425 million. Please welcome Andy Greenberg.
Thank you, Doug. First thing I'd like to say is if you raised your hand earlier saying you had lost money in a medical device startup, you definitely weren't one of my investors. So let's go from there. So what do we do with disc motion? Basically, we have replacement products for the discs in your lumbar spine, as well as the facets, which are the back of your lumbar spine. So these are the facets, these are the discs. And in this audience, you get a little bit older, you have pain in your back, radiating down your legs often. Instead of fusion, we're here to replace those joints, just like hips and knees are replaced. There are actually products like this on the market for the last few years. This thing that looks like a flying saucer, I know it's hard to look at x-rays, that's the Charité disc. That was my product. That's the one that we sold to Johnson & Johnson a few years ago. If you see this hardware, it means the device failed and had to be replaced. So they're out there, but it turns out that only 5 to 7% of the market was addressed with this device. Not only that, for this device, to implant this device in a patient's lumbar spine, you have to come through the stomach. It's an anterior approach to the spine. It's very hard to do. And also, you don't address the problems in the back of the spine, and that's where the missing 90+% of the patients are. So this is the first real total joint. We use that term meaning we're replacing everything that can function as a pain generator. Years ago, if you had a hip degeneration, you had a knee degeneration, those were replaced. Those were not replaced. They were fused. You lost the motion. That's currently what's happening in the bulk of spine problems. But now we're starting to move, as we did with hip and knees, into replacement for the spinal device as well. So here's sort of a drawing of it. These are the back pieces that replace what's called the facets, the back of your back. Here are the discs. They replace the disc. So what's going on here in this marketplace? This is lumbar discs. I say they're on the market now. My device is on the market. It's approved. It's about a $100 million market right now. Expected to go to $500 million. The back of the back, that's already, there are a couple of people that can do that. That's expected to get to $1 billion. That's also probably $100 million right now. And then there's all these other fusions that are out there, and that's currently about a $1 billion market. So here, where are we? We are implanting in patients, as of now we're approved in Europe. This is the first patient. This was done in May. This is the piece in the back of the back. You're looking at this from the side. There are the discs. There are the facet replacements. Now you're looking straight on from the back. So that was the first patient. We've done a couple more. I'm going to Europe in 2 weeks to see a few more. So we're up and rolling. And we're not only up and rolling in trials, we're actually selling. So this is the team, the surgical team that put in the first one. The patient was up and walking the next day. A couple of months later, after they saw that the patient was still walking, they placed an order for $100,000 worth of the products. We now have the second order. We're now shipping and billing. So we are up and operating. So what kind of market are we looking at here? This giant yellow swatch, this is the current spinal business. It is 63% lumbar fusions. Again, that's it. You have pain. This usually reduces it or relieves it. But all you do is lose the motion and transfer the load that joint was taking to an adjacent joint. This is the projection for 2015. These are not our projections. These are industry projections. That 23 of that is posterior non-fusion. So from the back, no more fusions. That's us, and right now essentially only us. The current anterior disc, they expect to go down to about 12%. So, and this is, to give you an idea, in the United States, people that have this kind of surgery, 400,000 patients a year in the United States. So it's one of the most common major surgeries. And for that reason, there's been a lot of action in this part of the world. So this is what's happened recently in the last few years. This is the The first one here, that's the Charité disc we talked about. It sold to DePuy Spine. That's the Johnson & Johnson Spine and Orthopedics division. For $425 million. Our sales at that time were $1 million. So to give you some idea, the margins are enormous and the potentials are enormous. And again, this ended up addressing 7% of the market. Synthes bought a company called ProDisc for $350. They were only in studies. By the way, we were also not approved at the time. We had filed our PMA. In other words, we had asked the FDA for approval, but it had not been granted. This one was in study. Stryker bought a company called Flexicor, $300 million, only in the study. This is sort of a related product that we can address. Kyphon, which is a public company, bought X-Stop for $725 million, was on the market, sales were $7 million. And then Kyphon then got sold to Medtronic for $4.2 billion. And then Medtronic also bought their own disc for $270 million. We can address all of these markets and then some. So who are we? This is the management team. I'll just talk about myself for a second. Again, as you know by now, I've been in artificial lumbar discs before. And when I finished that company, I started an extremities company, extremities and orthopedics, anything from the knee down or the shoulder down. So I started an extremities company, basically an ankle company. I contracted to sell it to a company called Small Bone Innovation a couple of months ago. That deal's been announced, but hasn't closed yet, and the price has not been announced. But it left me with nothing to do, so I'm sitting around playing some golf. Phone rings from a headhunter. You want to come and do lumbar